Of course, there will be times when the Title Studio FX browser doesn't do everything that you need it to do. So you'll need to go a little bit more in depth to customize a title or to create a title from scratch. And in that case, what we'll do is we will go into the BCC Title Studio FX and we will launch our Title Studio UI. And this is the Title Studio UI. At the bottom, we have our timeline. And in the top left, we have our controls and our text window. And all of this is contextual. So as we start to work with different effects and different layers, what we see within the controls will change depending on what we can do with it. And in the middle here, we have our toolbar, and we'll get to those as we need them. And finally, at the top right-hand corner, we have our composite window. So this lets us preview what's happening. It also lets us move objects around and animate things directly within our window here. As we work through, we'll be looking at some of the other features that this window lets us do. First and foremost, let's look at the layout of these layers here. Now, we have a hierarchy going on. We have our scene, which is a 3D container. So this is like a folder that we open up. And we can transform our entire scene. If I come up to the position controls here and just start to scrub the position around, you can see that all of my elements are moving at the same time. Just undo that with a Command or Control Z. You see that underneath that, in my little subcontainer, I have all the individual elements, my blue week text, my this is text, my line, and my logo, all created on separate layers. So all of these layers can be changed or animated up individually. So if I just double click on a text layer, so I'm going to double click on blue week, it's going to immediately open up my text window. And if we look at the bottom of this text window, you can see we have different tabs. So I can update the font. I can just sort of scrub through these fonts here or come through and use the drop-down menu to find something that I like. And if I click through them in this way, it will update for us both in the text window and in the composite window over here. If instead of clicking through like that, I use the up and down arrows, I'll see it updating here, but I may have to open out this window a little bit and hit apply for us to see it on the composite window over there. But I quite like this Dotum font here. It's got a sort of underwater type of feel to it. Yeah, I quite like that one. Now, I'm not going to explore all of these at this moment in time. I'm sure that many of you are breathing a sigh of relief at that. But we can go through just onto the other tabs and we can check out the fill, if it's going to be a color or gradient. We can do borders, so edge styles, and we can do multiple borders here. And this bottom tab is for shadows. So we can do multiple different types of shadows. At the moment, we currently have a drop shadow turned on. But if I come into T2, I can have a cast shadows or solid shadows, which is sort of, faux 3D type of shadow, little Superman shadow, I like to call it. But we'll turn that one off, so we've only got our first drop shadow there. And if I double click on the this is text, I can do the same thing here. Come in, just find my chosen font. Now, if we look to the right-hand side of the layers, we can see what type of layer they are. The top two, the blue week and this is text, are unsurprisingly text layers. I can click on those and just see and confirm what they are. Our line here is made up by a spline primitive, which means a predefined type of shape. If I open that up, and up in the controls, we can see what type of shape it is. Look through and change those up as we need to. But closing the line up, I like the line how it is. And going to our logo, we have a spline object. So this is an object that has been drawn. And if I open up my logo here and click on the material on this one, you can see the spline object as it has been drawn using the pen tool. If I want to, I can click and I can adjust this up. So all of this remains completely editable. And as I said earlier, the controls are context aware. So now I'm in the material of this spline object. I can go into the fill on this one and I can change the fill here to maybe to be this sort of blue object. So the animation, the basic animation itself is still the same, but we very quickly updated both the font and the shape and color of the logo. And if I hit apply now, save that up, and we can see that those changes are being applied straight away onto our main text there. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about those rigid runs that we looked at in the intro. So let's come in, go back into launching the Title Studio UI, and take a little look here on the top of the timeline. So you can see at the start where I have all my keyframes. These little dots, these are the keyframes. So the animation points. I have this black area, and this black area is a rigid run. So what this means is that this bit at the front and this second black area at the back, which is also another rigid run, is going to be fixed and frozen. So the keyframes that are in here aren't going to stretch out as we make the title longer or shorter. These are always going to be the same length. So you can see this first rigid run goes to 2 seconds and 13. So I hit apply on that, and let's shrink this down again. Let's make this title just a little bit shorter and go back in. And let's see, the rigid run is still exactly what it was before, 2:13. But this grey bit that we had previously that was outside of the rigid run is now shorter. And the rigid run at the end is also the same length. So through careful use of rigid runs, you're going to be able to make titles that are completely flexible in terms of length, but still maintain that same characteristic animation when they come in and come out. So that's our first quick look at the Title Studio UI with contextual controls, layer order and layer type, and how we can quickly adjust text or other graphical elements within our title.